We are intelligent and driven without being arrogant. And I don't know, I mean, there's a lot of men in the world who are not arrogant, but I do think that, you're right. We like to work within teams, and the best way to work within teams is everybody's doing everything, is nothing is beneath anybody. And I think that is is common with women, and maybe more common with women than it is with men.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Buzz for Good, where we talk all things nonprofit, the people they serve, and the good they do. And I am buzzing today because last week's show was our most popular yet. As part of Women's History Month here in March, we explored on last week's show why women make good nonprofit leaders. And this conversation came about when I discovered that almost all of the 30 episodes that we have produced of our TV show Buzz has featured nonprofits led by women. Last week's show, which we called Why Women Lead Nonprofits, which we then uploaded to our podcast Buzz for Good, got twice as many downloads as our previous high. And so on today's show, we're going to continue that conversation with 5 other women who are nonprofit leaders. And we dig deeper to explore not only what makes women good nonprofit leaders, but in some cases, what makes them more effective than men. I also invite you to listen to another recent Women's History Month episode of Buzz for Good, where we asked why women give and the success that women have had in creating and sustaining philanthropic giving circles. That episode featured conversations with the Roanoke Women's Foundation, whose 2023 application deadline is coming up on March the 31st, and 100 Plus Women Who Care New River Valley. And you can listen to my conversations with them at buzzforgood.com/podcast. That's buzz, B-U-Z-Z, 4, good.com/podcast. I am Michael Hemphill, creator and host of this radio show and the TV show Buzz that airs on Wednesday nights, 7 p.m. on Blue Ridge PBS. Each episode features a nonprofit organization in Virginia and provides the nonprofit with pro bono marketing resources that are provided by members of the American Advertising Federation of Roanoke. Our sponsors for this show include the Roanoke Cultural Endowment, which is seeking to provide a long-term funding solution for arts and cultural organizations in Roanoke, more at roanokeculturalendowment.org, as well as the Louise Lester Foundation. The Louise Lester Foundation is sponsoring our newest episode of our TV show Buzz that premieres March 29th on Blue Ridge PBS, and you are invited to a free community watch party at the Grandin Theater that evening. More information on our website, buzzforgood.com. This episode is our 30th episode that we've created of our TV show, and it stars the Least of These Ministry, a nonprofit that helps the homeless in Roanoke. It is an incredible organization founded and led by a woman named Dawn Sandoval. And we are going to start this show today with some audio from that episode that introduces Dawn and one of her key volunteers. We will then feature a short interview with her in which she shares her thoughts on women leadership in nonprofits. Following Dawn are conversations that we are having with Karen Pillis, the Executive Director of the West End Center for Youth, Julie Whalen, Executive Director of Friends of the Blue Ridge, Ellen Ryan, past President and current Treasurer of the Eastmont Community Foundation, and Jessica Wirgau, CEO of the Community Foundation of the New River Valley. But first, here is Dawn Sandoval with the Least of These.
And Lord, we just pray that you will allow us to provide what they need and that they'll see Christ in us, Lord. Let us be transparent and let them see you, Lord. We just love you and we trust you in all things. In Christ's name, amen. Amen. Come on in the house.
Miss Sandoval.
DC.
How you doing?
Why are you here? So my name is Dawn Sandoval, and I'm the founder of the Least of These Ministry.
I'm here to donate.
Oh.
I'm here to do
To
God's
give
will.
back. Okay.
Yes. I'm here to do God's will.
This area is where our guests come into the ministry building and wait for their services, whether it's showers, laundry. They're served their lunch here. This area here is where we actually sign them in for the services that they'll be getting, serve them lunch, coffee, hot chocolate, just something to make them comfortable while they wait.
Nice.
This ministry was founded because we recognize that there are gaps in the services that are offered here in the Valley. This is our other shower space, and the importance of the showers are that there is nowhere that homeless individuals have a place to shower, that are people that are unsheltered have a place to shower. In the winter, not everyone is as desperate for showers, but in the summertime, we do an excess amount of showers. What inspired me to begin this ministry was I felt a call to inner city ministry work. And I started to walk to work every day, and I befriended all of the homeless folks on my route to work. I learned their stories, what their needs were, what their barriers were. So this is our laundry room, and this area is very important for a couple of reasons. Number one, it continues the opportunity for people that are unsheltered to be sanitary, but it also offers an opportunity for people to hang on to what they have. Clothes are not disposable. This way we can launder what they have. Instead of giving them a new pair of underwear every 2 days, we can launder their clothes and they can maintain what they have. And so I just started going on Facebook, asking my friends for their old coats and gloves, and we filled the back of our Tahoe up with these items and went out on the streets pretty much every night, especially in the wintertime. And God has morphed that into what you see here today. This is our needs pantry. Okay. And so basically we have our food in this area, just the non-perishables that we give out for lunches, also that we put in the ministry truck so that we can hand them out at street level.
My name is Jen Holcomb. I am the outreach coordinator here in Roanoke for Elevation Church. Before I got to know Dawn and the least of these and what they were about and what they were doing, I think my opinion of the homeless was fairly generic of what other people think as well. It's just that they could help it, they could change it, they should just go get a job. Or they should stop freeloading off of others.
We have a lot of the sleeping bags, tents, clothing in this area. In the back, you'll see some household goods where we help provide household items for people that we're putting into housing. And we also have furnishings on this side as well for people that we are placing into apartments. And then we have our little kitchenette area where we make sandwiches for each day so we can provide lunch.
So what Elevation Church does on a consistent basis is we partner with Dawn, reach out to her. We have a liaison that reaches out and says, hey, what are your needs? We help her dream and help her to really just get the best out of this ministry as she possibly could. We come alongside, we let her do what she knows how to do best so that we can come alongside of her and do what we know how to do best, which is clean and paint and donate items. And really sometimes we have financially come alongside of her and helped give her items that she needs to better the ministry.
The least of these also installed outdoor lockers so that homeless individuals have a safe, secure place to store their possessions. A warming bus for people to sleep when temperatures dip below 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And a converted ambulance nicknamed Mercy Grace that 3 times a week delivers food, blankets, clothing, and medical supplies to those living on the streets. All of this created by one woman who never personally experienced homelessness, but certainly suffered her own share of pain.
I do not have an experience with homelessness in my own personal life. But what I do have an experience with is being diagnosed with anxiety when I was 12 years old. And I also went through an abusive marriage, first marriage, for 14 years. And I
just needed somebody to help me. You know, my circumstances were difficult, and I just needed somebody to care about me and to help me through that. And I see these people the same. You know, they're people that their circumstances have brought them where they are. It could be that it's consequences of their choices. It could be that it's circumstances that they had zero control over. But at the end of the day, they're humans, and they deserve to be treated with dignity and humanity. And sometimes it's a very small thing that's between them and success. And so we're here to just try to identify how we can help them get on the road to recovery, whatever that looks like. I'm sorry for the no. That's a really hard thing to talk about.
So I'm welcoming to Buzz for Good, Dawn Sandoval, who's the director of the Least of These Ministry, which we are featuring on our TV show Buzz on Blue Ridge PBS coming March the 29th. Dawn, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
So talk about kind of your path leading up to Least of These Ministry, as far as career, family. You know, if you had 30 seconds to tell people what you did before this ministry, what was it?
I worked in the medical insurance billing field for Aetna Medicaid, and I was doing ministry in addition to that, and the ministry continued to grow, and it was like I was given a choice: either you do ministry or you work full time, and I really just felt called to quit my job and do this ministry full time.
Phenomenal. Is there something about this ministry that spoke to you as a woman?
Well, I think women are nurturing by nature, and I think that they generally are compassionate. And so working amongst people that are broken and have needs, I think that nurturing side just lends itself to wanting to help people.
Yeah, more so than men?
Yes. Not that men are not nurturing and that they're not compassionate, but I think oftentimes it's easier for men to have compassion in that moment and move past that, where women see something going on and it continues to come up in their spirit that they need to do something about that. And so I think that's really what might drive more women than men.
Yeah. And so, I mean, not only inspiring women to join a nonprofit to, you know, help fulfill that mission, but I mean, then there's also leading the nonprofit, which is a different animal altogether. You know, what about, are there some, like, maybe some, would you consider characteristics of women that make them better suited to leading a nonprofit?
I think that women can be very creative and tenacious, maybe not giving up. You know, we meet a wall, and so we may not be able to go through it, but we can go around it, and you know, just that spirit of not giving up and trying to continue to figure out a way to make things happen. Again, I think the compassion comes in when you're working with the people that you're serving and also with the people that staff your organization. I think it makes it a good mix for people that want to come alongside you, who generally have the same heart.
Yeah.
I think that really is key. You know, the people that work with you are generally of the same heart that you are as a leader, so it makes it easier.
I hear you saying something to the effect of like servant leadership.
Yes.
Is that, to me, having been around nonprofits a lot, I tend to see that model of leadership more in kind of a woman CEO than more of a dictatorial male CEO. Is that safe to say?
It is absolute truth. And I often, from the people that work with me, alongside me, because we are a team, I'm not a boss. I just have a lot of crazy ideas, and I have people that work alongside me that are willing to do it. But, you know, I always tell them how appreciated they are, and just try to show them love and encouragement. And, you know, we're a team here. So I definitely think I serve them as much as they serve our organization. And I think it works out well that way. People want to know that they're appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is tough work that you're doing. Having walked alongside you, behind you over the last month or so, there's got to be a calling to this. This is not something that you're looking for just to pad your resume.
This is true. This is not something that you sign up for aside from it being a calling. It's not really a job. It's a calling. Yeah. So, and that's everybody that serves here. It's the same for all of them. Nobody signs up to work with this population without having a heart for people. Yeah,
yeah. And there's no prestige, really, in this work that you're doing.
No prestige.
Which I think sometimes, and when I speak about men and women, these are stereotypes.
Right.
And overgeneralizations.
Yes.
But I think, from my experience, men sometimes at certain stages of their life are looking for prestige rather than, like the work that the least of these does.
Yeah. I think definitely men and women are wired up differently. Of course, there are some competitive women in the workforce that want to be that, you know, person on the billboard and things of that nature. This, the population that we serve and the work that we do is not prestigious. As a matter of fact, sometimes we find quite the opposite, that people are not open to what we do because they have stereotypes of people that are experiencing homelessness. So we are often unwanted and judged as an organization because of who we do serve. So it comes with persecution. Wow.
Any advice you have for men and women looking to enter into the nonprofit space, either as a leader?
I would just echo what you said as far as having a servant's heart. You know, you have to be open to serving the people that you are focusing on, but you also have to serve the people that are willing to come alongside you and make it possible. You know, what we do here is very much a village effort, and were it not for the people that come here every day that we're open and do things that they don't even sign up to do, you know, there are things that happen here daily, and we just adjust and overcome. And that's really the key. Yeah.
Well, Dawn Sandoval, Executive Director of the Least of These Ministry, thanks so much for all that you do for our community, especially those who are the least of these, our homeless.
Well, thank you for all you've done to try to bring awareness to us and the support and encouragement you offer.
Absolutely. One more time, that is Dawn Sandoval with The Least of These, the Roanoke-based nonprofit that we are featuring in our newest episode of our TV show Buzz, airing March 29th at 7 p.m. on Blue Ridge PBS. And again, we are hosting a free community watch party that evening at the Grandin Theater. More information on our website, buzzforgood.com. That's buzz, B-U-Z-Z, 4, good.com. Also stay connected with us on our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube, all at Buzz for Good, our YouTube channel. You can watch one of our 30 previous episodes of our TV show anytime on demand. Next on today's show, we are featuring more female nonprofit leaders for Women's History Month. And here is Karen Pillis, Executive Director of the West End Center for Youth. Well, I am joined here on Buzz for Good by Karen Pillis, who is the Executive Director of the West End Center for Youth, an after-school and summer program for children ages 5 through 18 throughout the city of Roanoke. So, Karen, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Share with me kind of your world prior to you beginning nonprofit work, as far as, you know, career, family, what have you.
I a long history of management in restaurants and retail. I had been human resource manager of a large department store in the Roanoke area. I'd had 3 children and had decided at some point in my older 2 lives that because they're twins and I could foresee a day they would no longer be in my home, that I needed to do something different. And I went back and got my master's in counseling and thought I was going to be a guidance counselor in a school, and decided that that really wasn't my path. But I really did want to work with children. I had seen the peers of my kids, and I had been really moved by some of the situations that I had found their families to be in, and I found them to be in, and how I really felt like that some children are born with kind of a stacked deck. You know, you get the advocates, you get the health, you get the money, you get a lot of things that other kids just don't have. And it was really concerning to me when I saw the resources that those children that maybe weren't born with such a great hand were requiring, and how maybe little empathy that a lot of those services showed for the children and their families. So I started looking for what would be a good fit and landed in a nonprofit family service of Roanoke Valley, where I was a program manager, and soon became the director of youth development. And I don't know that there's any job that's ever been better suited for me, because I love youth, I love developing youth and leaders, and I love Roanoke. I'm a Roanoke native, and that was a passion too, to see my community become a better, more supportive, safer place for the youth that it was that were residing in it. So it was a great fit, and as with all good things, I went on to another job, and I was the director of mental health counseling, and from that perspective, I got to see a lot of other, like, really deeply hurt families and children through a lens of trauma. And then I took this job at West End. I have, like I said, I've got a long history of management and leadership and nonprofits and in for-profits in retail and restaurants. So budgets and hiring and process and all of that were kind of ingrained in me since I was a young girl in the restaurant business. So this is a great fit for all those skills that I bring with me and all the passions that being a mom and being a longtime Roanoke citizen have really created, I think, with me.
What a beautiful story. I wasn't aware of all of that. And it makes me wonder, from society's perspective, was there more, I guess, status and salary with your previous world and, restaurants than where you are now?
Yes, I took a huge pay cut to go from retail to nonprofits, and then but had already taken a pay cut really from restaurants to retail, because restaurant work is tough. It's hard work, but if you get into the management level, it pays you well. It's just hard. So I had taken pay cuts through the years, and I really also made some decisions. Like, we knew we wanted to raise our children in Roanoke, so the large retailer I worked for, the path upward was out of Roanoke, and we knew we didn't want to do that. So I had already made a lot of choices based on what we felt would be best for raising our family. But I was so privileged to be able to make those decisions and not be forced into taking a job out of Roanoke or taking a job that didn't fit with my children's lives, based on an economic requirement. I stayed home for several years in retail, and then went back and kind of stepped right back into where I had stepped out of, because I had those connections in the retail establishment. But a lot of people would have not been able to have that privilege. Yeah.
It seems like, though, some of the issues that kind of factored into your career choices are factors that more often from my observations, seem to be those that are women concern themselves with rather than men. Is that
It's funny because when you called and asked me to meet with you today, the first thing I did was poll some friends who were nonprofit leaders and who have worked closely with other nonprofits and to talk about women in nonprofit leadership, because I have a great brain trust that comes along with me that helps me, and so I wanted to get their opinions. And one of my friends is a academic person, and she said that in her studies that women are socialized in the way that women are socialized, they are more embedded in their community still, even today. And that translates to being more aware in some ways of community issues, more entrenched in the community, so that the community issues they do take on in a service role, whereas men many times are asked to be on boards or in leadership roles, but not as often asked to get down and tutor with the children or do the service work. And that she thought that is one of the reasons that women, when they did start to become leaders, it was accepted for women to be leaders in organizations, that they were more aware of nonprofit work and were very comfortable in that world because they had spent their generations before us had spent their lives in this world.
Yeah. Well, once again, joined here on Buzz for Good by Karen Pillis, who's the executive director of the West End Center for Youth, a nonprofit after school and summer program for children. And what you just said, I have to ask, are women just better suited than men in working in philanthropy and nonprofits?
Well, one of my friends reminded me, women are great leaders no matter what type of organization it is, and we don't want to lose that point. But
right.
If you look at Roanoke nonprofits, it certainly does look like that it is heavily weighted towards women in nonprofits. Though in the world, women are still a very small percentage of the leaders of the largest nonprofits. So we're still working our way up to the largest executive director and CEO roles in the largest nonprofits in the country and in the world. So I appreciate that I've been given this opportunity and that I look around and I see so many other women that are along for the ride with me. And I don't know that I think we're better suited, but I do think that our leadership skills and how we perceive nonprofits kind of mesh. We want to believe that nonprofits are not as transactional, to quote a friend of mine, as for-profits.
Yeah.
We want to believe that they are more aimed at mission-driven, purpose-focused kind of organizations. And women, that is what appeals to many women. It's, women lead from the heart, and many women lead from the heart. I don't want to stereotype any woman, but women many times lead from the heart, and we're doing hard work. So it is a good fit, I think. And I also think that, women will work for less and nonprofits pay less. So that's one thing. But I also think that women are better because of the way we've been socialized, not because of any decrease in, ability by men. But we are better and more used to multitasking in a given day and doing a lot of different things. And in nonprofits, we often don't have those support functions like administrative assistant. We need to be able to multitask. We don't do just one thing during the day. And I think that is a good fit for the way we're socialized, the way we're raised, through the generations, how we've lived our lives.
Yeah, nonprofits don't have the budget to
Correct.
oftentimes to have a person dedicated to one particular thing, and so therefore nonprofit leaders such as yourself have to wear a variety of hats.
Right.
And yeah. And I also believe that there's no job that's beneath you when it comes to, at least women being in a leadership role at a nonprofit, that they're more inclined to do whatever it takes to get the job done than perhaps men who sometimes are unfortunately driven by, ego or status.
Yes.
One
of my other brain trust friends
Uh-huh.
Echoes your words. She says that we are intelligent and driven without being arrogant. And I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of men in the world who are not arrogant, but I do think that, you're right. We like to work within teams, and the best way to work within teams is everybody's doing everything, is nothing is beneath anybody. And I think that is is common with women, and maybe more common with women than it is with men.
Well put. Well put. Wow. For someone who is, a man or woman who's interested in entering into the world of nonprofits, what advice would you have for someone who, in that situation?
I think that what brought me to this and being so passion driven for my community and for youth, and then finding organizations or organizations finding me, which was at the heart of their mission as well as community and youth. I think that has been a particularly good route for me, but I already had so many of the management supervisory kind of skill things in my back pocket. I think that one of the things that you just said was, nothing's beneath you. I think to do a little bit of everything, to find something and approach it with curiosity and learn everything you can. I think that the days, I hate to say this because I am of the, I'm a baby boomer, and we thought that we would be in jobs forever and ever. And I don't know that I think in nonprofits that's a particularly good road. I think that no, I'm not talking about job hopping, but I am talking about exploring different nonprofits, because every nonprofit has its own culture, has its own mission, has its strengths, has its weaknesses. And I think that you take all of that with you when you go to the next job, and then you're going to find your leadership position. And I think that is what I've seen other younger leaders than myself. I see that it makes them particularly capable when they have so many different points of view. They may have been direct service here, frontline manager here, second level next one. And it's really led them to have the capacity to really blossom when they get that opportunity to be a leader.
Mm-hmm. Well, Karen Pillis, Executive Director of the West End Center for Youth, thank you so much for coming on to Buzz for Good and sharing your perspectives on why women are such good nonprofit leaders.
Well, thank you, Michael, and thanks all to my friends who came along on this ride with me, because they helped me put words into my mouth and helped me form my thoughts. So, women depending on women.
One more time, stay connected with us at Buzz for Good throughout the week on our social media channels, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube, all at Buzz for Good, as well as our website, buzzforgood.com. And here on our special Women's History Month, Buzz for Good, where we're talking about why women make wonderful nonprofit leaders, we have Julie Whalen with Friends of the Blue Ridge. Now, she took a little arm twisting to come on the show, but I would say that probably goes to her style of guiding her nonprofit through something she calls quiet leadership. Julie, let me just jump right in here. Are there particular traits that women are more likely to possess that maybe make them better nonprofit leaders than men?
Oh, goodness. Let's start with a tough question. I don't know that there's traits that are necessarily inherent to women as much as an individual's personality. I think there might lend itself some characteristics of women where they are predominantly more of a quiet leader,
mm-hmm.
and not that implies strength or weakness, but the way they conduct themselves, I feel like there's more opportunity there for somebody who doesn't necessarily command the room because of being loud or over the top, but that it's creating connections, that it's genuine and thoughtful and caring. So I'm not totally comfortable saying that those are just traits exclusive to women, but I feel like you find those more so in women maybe than in men.
Yeah, lovely. Lovely. Is that the whole kind of servant leadership model or some version of
Yeah,
that?
I think so. I think so. And for women who find themselves in positions where they are partnered, and specifically mothers, they're used to guiding and walking alongside people as they journey through life, instead of being a command in charge, do as I say type of leadership role.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if it took a little arm twisting to get you onto the show. And
yes.
and I think what you're describing maybe is one of the reasons why is that I know you don't seek the limelight ever, really, when it comes to your work as executive director of this organization that it extends throughout Virginia's and North Carolina's Blue Ridge. You're happy to work behind the scenes, creating those connections. Definitely reluctant to be on here, and I would assume that's kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that is a great connection there. Personally, my strength is kind of a backstage role in a lot of the relationships that I have in my life, including my work and professional career. I get a lot of enjoyment out of connecting with people and helping them achieve their goals.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that is the best win-win scenario. It works for me and it works for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But seeing your leadership style in action over the last couple of years, I mean, there's been a lot of transition with your organization.
Yes.
And where different leaders might have seen different results, but the way that you have handled it has, I think, just produced such a beautiful end result right now with, creating all these new partnerships. And for those who may not know much about Friends of the Blue Ridge, maybe just talk about, what Friends of the Blue Ridge has been able to accomplish over the last couple of years due to these kind of behind the scenes connections that you've made.
Certainly. So in the beginning of 2021, we shifted our focus into the Blue Ridge communities along the Parkway, where our extensive volunteer network live, play, and love. And so we have looked for opportunities to improve these communities. We let the volunteers really drive the efforts. They know what's needed in those communities, what will have the best impact, who the people are that we need to connect with. So in a lot of ways, they are leading me and pointing the organization in the right direction. So we've connected with trail associations and local town governments to come alongside a lot of groups to advance both of our missions. And it's just been a real joy to see the connections that are being made and the impact that our volunteers are having in those communities in a really short amount of time.
Yeah. I mean, you're over the last couple of years, Friends of the Blue Ridge has helped fund and build playgrounds from Waynesboro to Roanoke to Hillsville.
Yep.
There have been the trails work, working to fundraise for a new skate park in Sparta, North Carolina, creating a creative arts center in Hillsville. I mean, the list just goes on. And you say that that they have led you, but I think part of your leadership style is you have allowed yourself to be led. And that's perhaps, I would say, more of a trait found in women than men who,
Yeah.
and it's not, again, not a sign of weakness. It's just an openness to new opportunities.
Yes. I will never claim to have all of the answers, but I will always claim to know that I have more to learn. I've got opinions and I might know a few things here and there, but for me, life is learning, and I might not know how to get it done, but I'm going to figure out how to get it done.
Very nice. Very nice. Any parting words for maybe those women or men who are interested in getting into this work?
Into the work of nonprofits.
Yeah.
I've always found it rewarding. I started my career on the corporate side of marketing, and just I felt good about the work I was doing, but the impact in the world, we were promoting, for widgets, whatever the product was. And then when I flipped to the nonprofit world, and I was still doing those exact same job functions, but the product was so meaningful in a different way, it really made my career a joy. And so I would just encourage anyone that, is interested in having an impact in a meaningful way with their career, to really check it out and not limit yourself just because you feel like it's nonprofit work. I'm still utilizing all the same skills and assets that I acquired through my education and my early career in the corporate world, and never looked back once I made the jump to nonprofits.
Well said. Well said. Well, Julie Whalen, Executive Director of Friends of the Blue Ridge, thanks so much for sharing your insights into why women make great nonprofit leaders.
Thank you for having me, even if you had to twist my arm a little bit.
Many thanks again to Julie Whalen with Friends of the Blue Ridge for coming on our show today to talk about women's leadership styles for nonprofits for our special Women's History Month episode. One more time, please, all are invited to the community watch party for our next episode of Buzz, our TV show airing on Blue Ridge PBS. That will be March the 29th at the Grandin Theater. We are hosting that event to celebrate the premiere of our newest episode starring The Least of These Ministry, which in the episode receives some pro bono marketing from Wheeler Digital. That episode is sponsored by the Louise Lester Foundation. And lastly, here on our special Women's History Month episode of Buzz for Good featuring nonprofit leaders who are women, we talk with Jessica Wirgau, CEO of the Community Foundation of the New River Valley, and Ellen Ryan, past president and current treasurer of the Eastmont Community Foundation serving eastern Montgomery County, Virginia. And I started off by asking Jessica, are women simply better suited than men when it comes to philanthropy?
Well, I mean, we have to define what it means to be better suited for the world of philanthropy. I think, if we talk about sort of leading philanthropy, whether it be a foundation leadership like Ellen and I are, or starting a giving circle, I think many of the same things that the folks talked about last week with you would hold true here as well, that what women do tend to be good multitaskers. They do tend to be good at kind of pulling folks together around a common community cause. But that's, could be quite different than thinking about philanthropy in terms of are women better at giving, right? Like at deciding where best to give their money and having the capacity to give. Philanthropy is definitely more dominated broadly by men than women in terms of leadership roles. Mm-hmm. And I think that's changing, but I think, still the reality is that many of the folks who are in charge of the kinds of institutions, whether it be foundations or companies or even households that are giving larger amounts of money, tend to be more male dominated. So we have to kind of think a little bit about what do we mean there by leading philanthropy.
Mm-hmm.
And then in that sense, I think it would, women are well suited to it, but I'm not sure we're the ones in the driver's seat right now, I guess I would say.
Well, Ellen, I know that in Eastern Montgomery County, you were in the driver's seat. So, or what would be your take on that?
Actually, Michael, I've really started, I actually watched your podcast on women in nonprofit roles, and it really started me thinking about my journey, which for 10 years was with Jessica's New River Community Foundation, and that was such a huge learning curve for me. And actually, I guess in that 10 years, it was more male dominated, and Andy Morikawa was just such an amazing leader. And that's when Jessica came on, was during when he was finishing up his tenure. And so I guess in thinking back, it was more male dominated, and gradually women have seemed to be taking more and more roles. And that is true. I was the first, I guess I was the first woman president of the Eastmont Community Foundation. But here's the deal, Mike. I don't really think of it as women, and I guess in so many ways women do try to step up and fill holes, but and maybe it is moving on up. We're kind of grassroots, maybe.
Yeah, I think Ellen makes a really good point that the particular types of foundations that we're a part of are, and community foundations in general, I think are more grassroots community driven. And of course, the community foundation, the New River Valley, wouldn't be what it is without the leadership of Lindsay West, who was our first president, and such an incredible mentor. So I think in some of this community-based philanthropy, you're absolutely right, Ellen. Women are stepping up because they see the need for that and are filling the holes. Maybe different than from private or corporate philanthropy, which certainly I think is more male dominated.
I've seen huge transition, in my 70 years for women, and I just think it's just the most amazing journey ever. And I love the fact that so many more women are stepping up and taking leadership roles. Because it didn't used to be that way. Yeah. I mean, I was in high school, women couldn't play full court basketball because we were not athletic and us out too much. I mean, that's from whence, that's kind of my formative years. And, to see that women have been able to step up and take a real place is just amazing to me.
Well, as one of those women, Jessica, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with Ellen that I think it is changing, that there are more and more women who are kind of ascending, I would say, to higher roles in institutions of all kinds. And I think I agree as well that I don't want to pigeonhole. I've had the pleasure of working with many different male leaders that are very much mission driven, and some female leaders not as much. But I do think, there in this notion of status, in my experience, particularly with some of our donors, they like to be known as part of a certain crowd, right? So they look for what their other colleagues are giving to, particularly those in the business world. And in my experience, I've had more meetings with male donors that have what I would kind of call a savior complex, which is that they want to come in and fix something. So one of the stories I always tell is I had a meeting with a business leader in the area many years ago, and he was explaining to me that he likes to give to organizations that are on the brink of collapse so that he can come support them and keep them going.
Be the savior.
And I said, well, that's not us. The Community Foundation is built and managed to be here in perpetuity. And we think very strongly about how we don't get to the point where we're on the brink. But you better believe that when there's an organization in the region that's on the brink of collapse, one of the first phone calls they make is to the Community Foundation. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, we could be a good investment. And I mean, he ended up writing a check, so that evidently worked pretty well. But that's not the first time I've experienced that. And I that does to me seem that has been uniquely male. I have not come across a female donor or even one that's in a kind of an equal power position to some of these that has that same mindset. And that I do find really fascinating. And it's been a kind of interesting to try to navigate in general, and particularly as a female leader too, because certainly, the foundation doesn't need it saving, and neither do I, quite frankly. So, it's trying to figure out how you make the case to folks who that's driving them.
Well, one more time here on Buzz for Good, we are talking about women who lead nonprofits, and we are speaking with Jessica Wirgau, CEO of the Community Foundation of the New River Valley, and Ellen Ryan, past president and current treasurer of the Eastmont Community Foundation. One of the leaders I spoke with last week, we're talking about how, women maybe stereotypically are more inclined to be the caretaker, the nurturer, and, maybe historically men would be the protector. And I wonder if maybe some of that is, coming to mind with this, idea of the male donor being the savior, how, right. As opposed to the one just, willing to roll up your sleeves on a daily basis and do the work. Mm-hmm. And talking about community foundations, Eastmont Community Foundation, Community Foundation of the New River Valley, community foundations come in a lot of sizes and shapes and colors. And, some are simply there just for the money, as far as they, invite people to set up funds, charitable funds, and then they dole out money once or twice a year. And that's really their primary function. I would say that both of you are involved with community foundations that are as much about the actual work and programs that you do in the community as they are about the money that comes in and out. And I'm wondering if that has something to do with, both organizations having such a strong leadership by women.
I mean, for us, certainly, the legacy of folks like Lindsay West again, or Jackie Crenshaw, Ellen, so many others, to think about the foundation's role as more than just giving grants and scholarships is certainly alive and well. But that's, can be attributed as much to folks like, Andy, Joel Williams, and others. Mm-hmm. I do think one of the areas that we've really focused in is thinking about the way that foundations can convene partners. And I always say that, as a funder, when you call, people tend to pick up the phone. And so, even though we're not a huge funder, I think that oftentimes creates a nice in where we can say to folks, we really want to understand what's happening in the sector you're working in. Can you come to the table and help figure that out with us? And I think the process of convening those partners and really sitting at the table, wanting to learn and listen first, I think every time I've seen it done well, it tends to be more led by women than men. And that's not to say that men can't do it. They certainly can. And Andy was a good example of that. Yeah. But I think navigating some of the personalities and the ways in which you have to come to big collaborative projects with a desire to learn and give first. I think there's maybe women are because of everything you all talked about last week, and focus on multitasking, compassion, etc. And I also think maybe some of the players at the table just feel like a female leader is going to be more likely to listen than a male leader. I don't know, but I do think that work that we've done has been more female dominated, and I think as part of that is why it's been successful, is because there's a lot of wonderful women, particularly in the work that we do in early childhood education, almost entirely women. And it is probably some of the most robust, successful work we've done over the last few years.
Excellent.
Well, and I know Jess, really the Community Foundation of the New River Valley has never been just a giver of money. It is so impressive with the leadership. I went to some of the workshops, and it's just filling in so many holes and kind of pulling everything together. It's really amazing.
Thank you.
And in thinking about that in Eastmont Community Foundation, we really do fill a lot of holes and have a lot of people that come to us and say, can you help us? We just are right in the middle now, in conjunction with the Meadowbrook Library, doing the prom dresses. And the head librarian just said that a girl came in and said, I would never have been able to do this without your help. And it's these partnerships in our community that, to me, not just women, but I agree with you that so many of the things, when you actually think about it, is women driven. And so there is that really, when you sit down to think about it, it's the more nurturing that probably women step in for.
Once again, here on Buzz for Good, we are talking with Ellen Ryan, past president and current treasurer of the Eastmont Community Foundation and a longtime community volunteer, as well as Jessica Wirgau, CEO of the Community Foundation of the New River Valley. And they are sharing their insights on why women do such a wonderful job leading nonprofits. Well, I know I personally, having worked with y'all, alongside y'all, for y'all, that's been one of my big takeaways from seeing y'all in action, is the trying to put my ego aside, and again, kind of following on that mantra of, it's amazing the work that you can do when you don't care who gets the credit. And I think, unfortunately, too often men are defined by wanting to, well, that savior complex that you were talking about earlier, wanting to more focus on status and salary and celebrity than just the work that needs to be done. And so I'm still trying to take lessons from y'all, and I appreciate everything that y'all are sharing with me here.
I'm not sure if this is more likely of women or not. I would suppose so, but the issues and the things we have to address in our community, let alone the world, are huge, right? No one can do this by ourselves, and you can't take yourself too seriously. And I always say, to the staff here, like, we do amazing work, but we're not solving world hunger tomorrow, right? Let's put this in perspective and just realize that we're all doing the best we can. And there's something kind of freeing about that. I think that you could just, try to do good work and put one foot in front of the other. And I don't know if women are just more comfortable with that or what, but I do think there's something to be said for just wanting to do good work and not taking yourself too seriously. That tends to result in better relationship building, which at the end of the day, like Ellen was saying, with these partnerships that you're doing, those relationships are what matters. That's what gets everything done, is the relationships that get built. And I think that's oftentimes where women really excel.
Beautifully put. Well, Ellen Ryan and Jessica Wirgau, thank y'all so much for coming on to Buzz for Good and sharing more about basically just why women are better in the nonprofit world.
What a way to sum up, Michael.
There you go.
Yeah.